Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the business of sports.
Sports are the greatest unscripted show on earth.
The next generation of players really grew up with tech and believe in tech.
Your face is your ticket. Your face is your wallet. Your face is your access to a club.
These are such iconic and important buildings for businesses, for fans.
COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to golf.
The NFL is a bulletproof business.
Racing's unique because there is absolutely no reason why we can't compete with the guys.
Come on, is pro pickleball real? Are people really going to tune into this?
If you're playing Moneyball with a huge bag of money, you're going to be really, really good.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Damian, Sassower, and Vanessa Perdomo. Coming up on the show, with training camps getting underway, we'll do a full court press on all things NBA. We'll hear from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who sat down with the Bloomberg Originals chief correspondent Jason Kelly to talk the state of the league and the economic power of sports.
Nelson Mandela famously said, "Sport has the power to change the world." I'm almost sure when he said that, he wasn't thinking of change the world from an economic standpoint. It was more in terms of the spirit of the people. But now, jump ahead all these years to the present, we're now, on a global basis, sports has become a $1 trillion sector of the economy.
Plus, Damian, Vanessa, and our pal Bloomberg U.S. sports business reporter Randall Williams speak with Golden State Warriors shooting guard Buddy Hield to get a preview of the upcoming season and some of his off-the-court ventures. That's straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But we start with a special conversation Vanessa had with Milwaukee Bucks forward Kyle Kuzma. They sat down at Sports Beach in Cannes, France, to talk about some of Kuzma's many business ventures. Let's take a listen to that conversation.
I want to talk from the beginning, from your entrepreneur journey, from your business journey. 2017, you're drafted into the league, you start making money. When do those wheels start turning about, how do I save my money? Where do I invest it? How does that work for you when from the start?
Right away, literally right away. And I think that I've been very blessed and grateful to have a lot of good, positive role models in my life. And I think maybe not my first check. My first check was a car. But other than that, I think my second check went towards a real estate investment. And I think right from then, I knew right away, especially as an athlete, you don't have that much time to play. You may have, God willing, 10 years, right? A lot, especially for us, the average career is 3 to 4 years. So I knew right away that I had to be smart with my money because it can go quick, just like our careers. So,
So why real estate? Why was that the first one?
Safe. Yeah, the safest thing. I think that for me, beyond it being safe, it's something that I'm drawn to. I love art, and I think architecture is something that's huge to me. And I think that, like I said, beyond the investment aspect, I'm just drawn to properties.
So the art of the architecture, that's what you're looking into when you're looking into real estate, or? Sometimes,
for sure, 100%. I think some of the real estate things I'm doing now intertwine with that art perspective. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so was it a mentor that told you to get into real estate when you first did it, or was it just, I know this is safe, I want to go into it?
A little bit of that, but also I have a pretty knowledgeable financial advisor that really kind of walked me through, what investing looks like outside of just stocks and bonds in the stock market. And real estate was obviously one of the things that he was knowledgeable about to put me into. And I think that from there, from that little house in New Jersey that I kind of renovated and flipped to all the great things I'm doing now, I can accredit it to that early age, classroom class.
Then in 2021, you co-founded the company Barcode, which is a sports drink company. Tell us about that and why you wanted to create something there instead of being an ambassador for an existing company.
Yeah, I would say, I think for that perspective, prior to that, I had a bunch of deals, being an ambassador, being an influencer, whether it was, the Gatorades of the world and these other drink companies. And I wanted to do something that was, my own, right? I think a lot of times in this space, and especially as an athlete, you want to be able to call something your own, right? So, co-founding Barcode was one of my first, type of venture situations, getting in and starting a company. And I learned a lot of really valuable lessons from it. And it's a brand that's been around for, 5+ years, and we're moving the chain. So
yeah. What were those early lessons that you learned that was different for you than investing in and growing a business? Like, what were those different things that you learned?
It's not easy. Yeah, it's definitely not easy. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think that, if you're starting a business, especially as an athlete or really anybody, it's all about being in the weeds. It's all about understanding what you're getting yourself into and trying to learn as much as you can, because especially in like the CPG space, there's so many companies, right? There's oversaturation in every little instance, right? So what's going to be the difference between you and somebody else? And I think that's, knowledge in a sense, and learning how to move.
How do you balance that, all being so involved in your businesses and playing at the same time? How do you balance all of these different hats that you wear?
It's a great question. I think I love what I do. I think I love being an entrepreneur. I love being a basketball player, first and foremost. And I have a great team around me. I think that's the biggest thing. If I didn't have a team around me that, could handle every little thing that I'm doing, I really wouldn't be nothing, and I would only really be a basketball player, right?
Mm-hmm. So we're in Cannes, which is all about rosé, but you have a tequila brand that you're partnering with, Casa del Sol Tequila. Tell me about that and how you got involved.
Obviously, a lot of times we like to do things and have things for our own, right? But I'm a basketball player, and it's a little bit hard to have my own tequila or have your own tequila. So partnering with somebody was huge, and Casa del Sol was that for me. I think for me, it's all about art and the storytelling of things beyond, just, the business avenues that you can kind of get into. And Casa del Sol is amazing. It's a tequila, which I love. It's my favorite drink. And the storytelling of Mexico and tequila, and we have an amazing co-founder, which is Eva Longoria, which is a really, really good personal friend. I really wanted to partner with them because they know what they're doing, right? I think that's also a big thing you should always think about when partnering with brands or getting into things, like what's under the hood. There's so many things out there. There's so many, for instance, Ferraris with Honda engines, right? So, seeing Casa, seeing where it's been from, year one to now year 3 is amazing. And I'm just very, very happy to, be a part of it.
Yeah. And so it sounds like that intentionality also partnering with Eva because of the trust there. Can you talk about whenever you go into businesses, how you do intentionally with who you're getting into business with?
100%. Eva's a amazing woman, amazing businesswoman, entrepreneur in her own right. And I think that as an athlete, you want to be around greatness and you want to surround yourself around successful people. And I think, even looking at Casa beyond Eva, there's a great infrastructure there. And I think that a lot of times when you go into partnering and investing, beyond, the glitz and the glamour of how things look or the packaging, like what's under the hood and who's operating is the most important thing. Because if you don't have that, then all the bells and whistles are just bells and whistles. Right. So
another thing that you're obviously very passionate about is fashion. And your tunnel fits have become some of the most iconic, notorious ever.
I think I'm in just a much different space now. I think that fashion for me is something that like you just said, you just mentioned that in this interview, that about me. So I don't really have to, overdo it and overshow it as much. You know what I mean? Because it's never really been something that's I wanted to show and, this is look at me. It's just I love art, beyond fashion. Art is here and then fashion is like a subsector, right? And I just needed a break. I think that if you look at the fashion industry, and also within athletes and sports, it's a great cohesion place, and we collide, and it's great, and it's great, symmetry. But I was just looking for much more in the fashion space that I wasn't getting.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, there's so many brands that we wear, right? It's free marketing for them. It's literally free marketing. I'll give you a prime example. So you just talked about tunnel fits and the pink sweater that I wore. That was huge. That went all over the world. It had about 65 million impressions. I mean, that was like the last thing I heard years ago about it. But I didn't get paid for that. And I wasn't looking to get paid for that. But that shows you just the influence of what, athletes have with fashion that kind of goes under the rug a little bit, right?
So, Kyle, we started off the conversation talking about how your first investment was in real estate. How has it evolved now, and what's your portfolio looking like these days?
Tremendously, from just a single family flip. Going from that to, working with multi-units into, investing into, pretty much ecosystems and resorts. I partner with a great friend of mine, Access Real Estate, and, we really try to find properties and locations that are like, really like once in a lifetime, and things that you really can't touch. You know what I mean? Whether it's PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens, right? The Arizona Biltmore, that is an unbelievable property, landmark culturally in Arizona. Those are the things that I'm really into, when I speak about the art aspect, and obviously the investment part that is also very, very important. Yeah. Those are the things that I'm really looking into that really, really excite me.
That's Kyle Kuzma, forward for the Milwaukee Bucks, speaking with our Vanessa Perdomo at Sport Beach in Cannes, France. Up next, we stick with basketball, and we hear from another NBA player, Buddy Hield of the Golden State Warriors.
It's been fun. Those guys are being tremendous. Just being able to learn from Steve, Steph, from the front office to the owners, to the fan base. Everybody's been great to work with. I can speak wonders about those guys, especially Steph, Dre, and Jimmy. They open their arms as a little brothers. They're being big brothers to me, and I just can't talk about how much I'm so much impressed about their leadership and how they go about their day and their lives and with their family, their businesses, and how they just enjoy to be working with.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, and we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. We are talking all things NBA today, with training camps just getting underway. My colleagues Damian Sassower, Vanessa Perdomo, and Bloomberg U.S. sports business reporter Randall Williams sat down with Golden State Warriors shooting guard Buddy Hield for a look ahead to the upcoming NBA season, plus to talk about some of his business ventures off the court. Let's take a listen to that conversation.
What's it like to play with Steph, Dre Green, Jimmy Butler? What are your chances this year? How are things looking?
It's been great, just being there, be able to be a sponge, open arms, great organization, of course, of what they've done in the past, and where the quest they're still on to get to another championship. It's been fun. Those guys are being tremendous. Just being able to learn from Steve, Steph, from the front office to the owners, to the fan base. Everybody's been great to work with. I can speak wonders about those guys, especially Steph, Dre, and Jimmy. They open their arms as a little brothers. They're being big brothers to me, and I just can't just talk about how much I'm so much impressed about their leadership and how they go about their day and their lives and with their family, their businesses, and how they just enjoy to be working with.
But I love how you're saying that. You're saying that you're a sponge and you're learning so much from them, but you're not new to this league either, right? You've been in the league for a while. You've played on a bunch of different organizations. So how would you compare your experience here and how you're still able to learn as someone who has been in the league for a while?
Because it's so crazy. Like coming to the league, I've been on a few veteran teams, and I guess when I was in New Orleans. When I first got drafted, I was only there for 3 months, and I got traded to Sacramento. And then when I got to Sacramento, it became a young team, and I was like the oldest on the team because they found all the older guys. But I was able to learn from like Zach Randolph, George Hill, Zebo, and after Harrison Barnes came around, I was able to learn from Harrison Barnes how to take care of myself and how to like work. And then after that, I went to Indiana, and it was just, a bunch around a young team again. And but I had a veteran coach in Rick Carlisle, and after I got traded to Philly. And then after that, it was just not that long when I was able to, when I got to the Warriors, I was able to, as I got older, pick their brains and see how they go by their days and how they go about their lives and from they carry themselves on the court, off the court. So I was more like a sponge because, playing the Warriors and seeing the Warriors, they do everything right. They won 4 championships. So me coming there is it's something special about this group, and I want to get to know what makes them so special.
Buddy, you have experienced a lot in terms of the contracts and the business of the NBA. It's changed a lot over the years. What is the biggest difference between when you entered the NBA and how it stands today based on, I'd say, a couple of collective bargaining agreements that have been agreed to?
You just got to learn how to adapt and endure the contracts and just be smart and how to handle yourself, take care of your money, and just set your money up for the future, and as you, come to the league, they preach it, you got to try to get to 10 years, because 10 years is full insured, everything, but it's also just managing your money too, because you have family, you got the things you want to do, and you have a lot of business adventures you want to do, and you're trying to find the right business deal to be in so you can set yourself up for life, because that us making these checks will not last for long. So just taking courses, learning from the vets, knowing what is good to go in, what is not going in, and sometimes learning from experience too. You might go in something that you want to try and it might not work out, but you learn from experience the next time that you go in something that you're more educated and you're more ready for the challenge.
Buddy, I'd like to ask you a little bit about what you're doing off the court here, specifically the work you've done with basketball clinics in places like NASA. I know you're Bohemian, Wichita, Kansas. I know you went there during high school, I believe, in California. Talk to us a little bit about that, the foundation, Hurricane Dorian, in 2019, it hit the Bahamas, all that you did for that community. Talk to us a little bit about all of that.
I'm a guy, I'm big on my country, and I feel that, everybody's investing in everything else, but I think I'm investing in my country. It was the Bahamas because I think there's a lot of kids that are in need, and whether it's come in my pocket or not, I just out there just trying to invest in them and try to help the youth and get back to when it was a hurricane situation where it was catastrophic hurricanes where it's damaged the island and families don't have a chance to get back on their feet, and just helping them with groceries and stuff like that. The little needs that I can take them for, people with medical bills, stuff like that. I just try to venture off and help as much as I can, and especially the youth with basketball. I try to help a lot of basketball clinics. I bring 2 AU groups over here every summer. They come to Dallas. I take them over around in America. They can play travel basketball and just to get experience. Situation they didn't have before, or what they're craving and what they want, because I know when I was little, I really wanted to do travel ball. I wanted to everybody knows America is the goal to come to if you want to play basketball. So I know how hard it was for me to get there. So I'm just trying to make it just as easy for those kids to have a chance to pursue their dreams, and this year we had 8 kids that got scholarship this year. So hopefully we can keep on building, and hopefully I can expand more in the Bahamas. My goal is to build gymnasiums and build career centers to help those kids, and whether it's not through basketball, whether it's through education, whether it's being doctors, lawyers, trying to kickstart them to they're gonna pursue their dreams.
I love how you talked about that there and talked about how when you were little, like you always wanted to be able to play travel ball and you wanted to do all these things and you're really trying to give back to the Bahamas now. I mean, right now in the NBA, we're seeing more international players than we ever have. And, I feel like we're all hoping for a Team World versus Team USA, all-star game. Right. But in terms of how you grew up and in terms of growing up in the Bahamas and then coming to the U.S. for high school, how was your journey coming from outside the U.S. to becoming an NBA player?
To me, it's something I always want to do. I was always a kid that always liked to venture off, always want to do things my way, and always be different. And always was a kid that, coming from Bahamas, you have 400,000 people. It's impossible for you to go to America and play basketball and make it the NBA because it's not really normal. You had your Michael Thompson who did it, Rick Fox, but if you look at the statistics, it's not really normal, And I had a lot of people that say like I'm crazy, but like my crazy was like I'm proving myself right that it can be done, And it was fun, I love the journey, I love the grind, I love the bad days I had. It was more bad than good days, but I know that when you figure it out, it's always like light at the end of the tunnel. So I was happy, My mom, I grew up with a household with 7 kids, and my mom was very spiritual, and I told her this is what I wanted to do, and she supported, and she's always been supportive mom my whole life. And she was never forceful or tell me I couldn't do things. And my family always had my back, and I just wanted to come to America and I pursue my dreams. And I know when I did that, I can open up floodgates for more kids and make them believe that it can be done.
Buddy, with you having the AAU teams and doing the work that you're doing in the youth sports space, you definitely would have seen the way that basketball culture has changed since NIL. What is that like comparing to what it was like when you were in school to what kids are looking at right now?
That's a good question, man, because I was just telling my kids that this summer that the NIL is tremendously changed the whole game, and I tell them that they're paying kids now, but really like they're paying older kids now because now it's become more of a business, and I telling them from my AAU program, like for my Bohemian kids, I was like, it's actually much more harder to get into college basketball. It's not easy as it used to be because now like coaches, universities, they wanted to pay the older kids because everybody's for winning and we don't win. Like coaches lose their job, like they're trying to find the best product to be, or they're the best product that is much more ready, and they want older kids. They're not really coming from the high school unless you're like a 5-star recruit, 4-star recruit, and they're going to try to help develop you. But so it's more harder for the international kids to get in. So you got to be one of ones. You got to be special. You got to bring something to the table that they need because there's a lot of kids in America that can do the same thing you're doing. So I'm preaching that every day. So you have to bring something. You got to be coachable. You got to be reliable. You got to bring some type of energy that is unreplaceable. That the coach is like, I need that kid. Yeah. So it's lighting the spark under these kids in Bahamas, and I think it can be done. But the NFL has changed the whole game, but this is where we live in, and it's exciting times. And if you can get paid for being a college student, I'm all for it.
How do you advise some of these athletes who can get paid NIL money but may not be able to go to the NBA? Like but there are 60 players that are essentially selected in every NBA draft, and even less international players. But there's a lot of players who stand to make a lot of money in NIL. What do you tell them when it's like, look, like I can make, let's say, $75,000 a semester, and I may not be able to go to the NBA. How do you advise them?
Take the money. Take the money. Take the money and build yourself. Take the money and save the money and build your business. Try to take care of your family as much as you can. Because in reality, if you don't call this, say maximum 6 years, right? Let's say 6 years, because it's a JUCO, and if you go to JUCO, it's like you have 2 years and you still have 4 years. And if you can make about, the rough free kid can make about 400 to 500. The better ones makes like $1 million plus. But if you can make in that range and take care of yourself, if you look at the business side of it, if you go to Europe, right, you're not likely to get a $75,000 contract off back unless you're good. Yeah. And there's guys that are still making money. So like, take advantage of the NIL. Try to support you and your family, and build off that. Build equity off that, and don't be a crazy college kid and just be spending it all about and doing all kind of crazy things in the cars and stuff because it's not worth it, So just invest it in the right way and just build it because if you're spending 4 years in college, most likely you're not going to make it in the NBA.
I just want to talk to you about some of the athletes who have come out of the Bahamas, starting with Michael Thompson. He was the first NBA pick overall back in the 80s. You know, he played for the Showtime Lakers. Right. He's a Bohemian, you know, right down to Isaiah Mobley, Eric Gordon, and now DeAndre Ayton and VJ Edgecombe, these new young up-and-comers, right? I mean, are you in contact with them? Are you in contact with Bohemian athletes of old? Like, just do you guys all stay in touch? I mean, what's the connection there?
Yeah, we have a whole group chat with the national team, so we always tapping in. So we're telling everybody happy birthday. BJ's always calling me. I'm calling him, checking on him. He actually called me like a couple of days ago when he's in Philly, you know, just because I was in Philly and I was like connecting with all the coaches, and I tell them, make sure you'll take care of my little bro. And I talk to DA all the time, you know, and I'm happy with his new gig with the Lakers. I'm excited for him, you know, and we all family, we brothers, and because we all want to see each other do good, and we always represent the Bahamas and trying to keep the Bahamas on the map.
That was Buddy Hield, shooting guard for the Golden State Warriors, with my colleagues Damian Sassower, Vanessa Perdomo, and Bloomberg U.S. sports business reporter Randall Williams. Up next, we hear from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, live from the 2025 Bloomberg Philanthropies Global Forum in New York City. That's straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. I'm Michael Barr. You are listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. Recently, friend of the show, Bloomberg Originals chief correspondent Jason Kelly sat down with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver at the 2025 Bloomberg Philanthropies Global Forum alongside the United Nations General Assembly in New York to discuss how sports can be an economic and business catalyst. Let's take a listen.
This is a room of people who invest and lead, and I would love for you to help them understand how sports can be an economic and business catalyst.
Well, thanks, Jason, and wonderful to see all of you. You know, Mike Bloomberg began this morning by saying we're all here to change the world. And I know you and I were doing something with a group of African investors earlier this morning. And many of you are aware that Nelson Mandela famously said, sport has the power to change the world. I'm almost sure when he said that, he wasn't thinking of change the world from an economic standpoint. It was more in terms of the spirit of the people. But now, jump ahead all these years to the present, we're now, on a global basis, sports has become a $1 trillion sector of the economy. Mm-hmm. And it's because, in addition to the human connections that come from sports, the enormous goodwill, the empathy we build from very different cultures, that it has become an economic engine, and not just the teams themselves, but for our sport, the arena development.
Right.
And many of you are familiar with it in the United States, where, think of that LA Live, it's really where it began, where it's not just the arena, but it's commercial development, residential, retail, et cetera, and increasingly going into areas of cities that are in badly need of investment. And then these teams become anchor tenants, and then often these arenas will have 250 separate events or so. So standalone great businesses. What we were saying earlier today around Africa, for example, I would say that's one continent where they have not experienced the level of sport investment as other places in the world. But on the other hand, I mean, it's just an amazing data point that the UN is estimating in just 25 years from now, 40% of the young people in the world will live in Africa.
Right.
And so we see as the NBA an amazing opportunity to build the sport there, to build an arena infrastructure. And we've, with credit to David Stern, my predecessor, who back in 2001 said we need to plant a flag in Africa. We opened an office in South Africa. We now have 5 offices in Africa, and roughly 6 years ago, we created a league in Africa called Basketball Africa League, mm-hmm. because we saw that opportunity to build the sport and build economic development as well.
And so how does that work from this I'm fascinated by this nexus of sort of investment and sport and where the investment opportunities are. You're going to sell franchises in Africa, I believe. We've seen that be a very successful business here in the United States. You know, Claire Wusai was with us. Right. What she and Joe have done, you know, with the Nets and the Liberty, you know, these are multi-billion-dollar businesses. Do you see the potential for multi-billion-dollar franchises eventually at other places around the world?
I do. I mean, I'll come to clearly in Europe, for example,
Yes.
there are multi-billion-dollar franchises. You know, just return to Africa for a second. I think over time, absolutely, there's no reason that those franchises shouldn't have the same global values you see franchise in the United States and you do in Europe. I would say in the shorter term, millions of dollars of value,
Sure.
no question, behind these teams.
But a growth investment, really.
But a growth investment. So we have a partnership. Our federation is FIBA, you know, and so they are our partners in Africa. And what we did in terms of this initial launch of the league, we took existing clubs, and those clubs are playing as part of this Basketball Africa League. So our plan has always been, once we established that arena construction has began in Rwanda, you know, President Kagame in Kigali, we have a state-of-the-art arena there. Senegal, Johannesburg, we see enormous opportunity to build additional arenas. And the thought is now that rather than take these existing clubs, that we are going to market with an opportunity to sell 12 franchises, 12 newly minted franchises, with the opportunity to build an arena complex with those franchises. Right. Again, presumably the arena becomes the anchor tenant for that for that arena. And then as we talk to other entertainment properties, that a lot of touring acts, if they can then go to the continent and tour, you know, the economies change, right? As opposed to a one-off event in Lagos or whatever else, or in Dakar. If you can then come and you know you can tour through several cities in 18,000 person arenas, that changes the economics for them as well.
And as you say, these sort of ecosystems that grow up around the arenas themselves, you know, you think about LA Live, you think about what, you know, we were with Grant Hill earlier today, the investment that he's doing with Tony Ressler and Richard Ressler down in Atlanta around Centennial Yards. We've seen it in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a great example as well. Let's talk about Europe. Of late, you have been talking a lot about expansion. What does that look like, and how do you, that's not sort of a greenfield situation. There are existing teams. How do you sort of merge into and create something that's complementary to the existing infrastructure there?
Right. So what we're looking at in Europe, again, completely independent from Africa, is that there's a very strong sport infrastructure there, largely built around soccer. It's football, obviously, they've called soccer to make it easier, and rugby and other sports. But basketball is the second most played sport in the world after soccer, and is highly developed in Europe. I mean, you know, several of our most recent MVPs are European. You know, think of Luka Doncic, right? You know, Jokic, etc. I mean, there's Victor Wembanyama. I mean, huge stars, you know, coming now out of Europe. An enormous amount of basketball being played in Europe, and there are country leagues, and there's something called the Euro League, which is a pan-European league. And it's something, you know, I've been with the NBA for over 30 years, and while we're a huge Olympic sport, and as I said, enormous development of players, in some cases, more sophisticated development systems than the United States in terms of developing multifaceted, talented players. From a commercial standpoint, we haven't seen the kind of development you've seen, particularly in the United States. There are not many state-of-the-art arenas in Europe. It's like, even for those who were over in Paris last summer for the Olympics, we had fantastic basketball competition in the Bercy Arena in Paris. It was, they revitalized it to a certain extent for the Olympics. But if you're in the industry, everything seems fine if you're in the seats and watching the competition on the floor, but it doesn't have the suites, the restaurants, the back-of-house room to do larger events. And that's Paris, of course. London has the O2, which has been a great advancement in Europe, but that arena is now already old and they're looking at a new development. So we think there's the opportunity to go in the major European capitals, again, with a joint proposition, both arena development, a multi-use facility, and all the opportunities around it, but then a little different than Africa, we think there's opportunity both to create new teams and in some cases take existing franchises. Often in Europe, think of it like college sports in the United States. You have soccer paired with other sports all under the same brand.
Right.
Real Madrid has great basketball. FC Barcelona has great basketball, but of course they're known for their soccer. Alba Berlin. You look around Europe. So we're also talking to some existing clubs about the opportunity to then bring their teams into this new league, but also in certain markets create brand new teams.
All right, so less than a minute to go. As you look out, do you envision sort of one global league where there's like players moving around, or is it sort of a confederation of related leagues? It's
a great question. I think initially, I think confederation is the perfect word. I can imagine certainly initially in Europe that, for example, we have something we call the NBA Cup, a mid-season tournament. You could imagine teams from Europe, potentially Africa, competing in that tournament. You possibly could see teams coming into our playoffs, top seeds from other leagues. But over time, I think, for example, certainly in Europe, as plane travel gets faster, it sort of went backwards with the elimination of the Concorde, but I'm reading all the time about more opportunities in aviation. When I think of the flight from New York to LA, for example, there's no reason if we had 4 teams in Europe, you couldn't travel, play, the Knicks or Nets, travel to London, play 3-4 times in Europe, come back home. So I think it's very doable in our league.
That was NBA Commissioner Adam Silver on stage at the 2025 Bloomberg Philanthropies Global Forum with our very own Jason Kelly. Jason Kelly is Bloomberg Original Chief Correspondent and co-host of The Deal with Alex Rodriguez. Find that on Apple, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast platforms. And while you're there, find the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast and subscribe to that too. Now we focus on the NBA for the entire show, but we have to mention at least one big story in the NFL. The New England Patriots have reached an agreement to sell an 8% stake in the NFL franchise at a valuation exceeding $9 billion. Sportico reports the buyers are 6th Street and billionaire Dean Metropoulos. For Insight, Bloomberg Intelligence hosts Paul Sweeney and Scarlet spoke with Sportico's Kurt Badenhausen.
We've been told that the Patriots are planning on really putting this money back into the franchise. The Kraft family, led by Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, owned 100% of the team before this and will maintain more than 90% of the franchise before this. And so this is, again, a way to create some liquidity that can be, again, some people take it and use it for personal use. We've been told the Patriots are going to put this back into the franchise. And for the Patriots are more than just an NFL team. They have, of course, Patriot Place around them, 1.3 million square feet, mixed-use residential development that has dining and retail, shopping, entertainment district that really set the model for other teams to follow in the NFL in terms of mixed-use development. So they also own a Major League Soccer team, which is not part of this deal, New England Revolution. They've been searching for a new stadium for a long time and are trying to do something in the Boston area.
That's Sportico's Kurt Badenhausen speaking with Paul Sweeney and Scarlet live on Bloomberg Radio earlier this week. That does it for this week's show. For my colleagues Damian, Sassower, Vanessa Perdomo, and a special thank you to Randall Williams and Jason Kelly, I'm Michael Barr. Thanks for joining us. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big old money in the world of sports. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports and Bloomberg Radio around the world.